Thank you for joining me, Lauren Heistad, reading through my SOULworks Trilogy, Homecoming. 3 books compiled into one, plus some what I call bonus features. I don't know if they're bonus or not, but that's what's in this book. We are getting our way through this 3rd book. And right now we're reading chapter 57. It is called The Higher Truth. Okay. I don't know if I'd call it liquid confidence. It's more like comfort. Comfort. And some days just a little bit of saving grace, hey? Okay. So back at the beginning stages of compiling my 2nd book, Evolving Your Soul Works, I was outside writing in my journal one day when an elderly gentleman sat down beside me. He politely said hello and then promptly inquired if I was writing a book. I proudly answered yes, while briefly explaining how I was writing aspects of my own life story. Now, even though it was years ago, his keen response still resounds deep within my soul. He said how pleased he was to hear I would be documenting my own life experiences. He further added that if I neglected to take up the task at hand, someone else would surely attempt to do it for me, adding in their own interpretation and varied perspectives to my truth. The ultimate authority between your life's work is between you and God. He further went on to proclaim, very adamant, that only I held the authority to write and clearly depict my own life experiences and story. He then tipped his hat, thanked me for the conversation, and vanished from my world as quickly as he had arrived. I believe the reason why his bold encouragement to my life story still echoes within my soul is that it was a true reflection of my reality. Beyond my personal experiences, beyond his perspective of my writing, beyond others' opinions of my story, his words resonated to the core of my being. It was my ultimate truth. In fact, we hold the capacity to always feel when an experience or interaction with another spirit, human or otherwise, is genuine in accuracy and for our highest good to both hear and adhere to. In that moment, our auric field explodes. It explodes into 1,000,000 pieces and then reassembles back again into a beautiful formation of our own inner truth, still ringing throughout body, mind, and soul. At the other end of the spectrum, an energetic reaction to interactions or perspectives that don't hold such integrity generate a much different vibrational response and are nowhere near as life-changing nor directives we are intended to follow. Now, understanding this vibrational resonance as a much deeper confirmation and soulful decree, I practice spiritual development faithfully while also encouraging all others to tap into their own soul potential. Within this framework, we are quite capable of expanding our intuitive muscle and connecting to both our higher self as well as our team of spiritual avatars for guidance, clarity, and support. However, as much as I value this process, and I practice it regularly, for darn sure, I must confess and be very adamantly clear that regardless of someone's ability to access the unseen, there always exists a higher truth to all things. Let me explain. Over the years, as I tuned into various energy and situations, I have always found there to be at minimum, 3 existing truths. The individual truth, the collective truth, and most importantly, the ultimate truth. Individual truths are based on the energy, opinions, beliefs, chakra, octaves of awareness, definitely, and experiences of any one person at any given time. Collective truths are similar, but are based on the combined energy, opinions, beliefs, vibrations, and experiences of a group or community or beyond. Then there's the highest truth, the ultimate authority on all things seen and unseen. How people perceive a particular experience creates the energy around that event, based on their own viewed truth of the unfoldment. However, their individual or collective viewpoint is based on human perspectives, awareness, interpretations, and past understandings. Interesting, isn't it? In other words, if a person were to tune into anything but the ultimate truth, what they would actually be picking up on would be the thoughts, opinions, and personal viewpoints of an individual or the collective perspective of that reality, not necessarily the ultimate truth. Just someone's version of that truth per se. Now, the interesting thing about these conflicting energies and viewpoints of experienced reality is that it's very, very easy to become influenced by the perception of one over the other, thereby not seeing any given situation with complete accuracy. In fact, in any given situation that involves more than one person, each participant will have their own version of the perceived truth within the experience. There will also be the combined experience and outcome of those involved. And beyond that, thankfully beyond that, exists the ultimate truth, which on many occasions can become further skewed by both the individual and collective experiences, expectations, or belief systems. I've witnessed this phenomenon on many occasions. I first started noticing this difference in energy with missing persons cases, actually. No matter how clear a mystic might be, or how much background experience they hold in the field of spiritual development, sometimes those tuning into a situation intuit the happening completely wrong. I used to spend hours intrigued by the obscure reality that, regardless of techniques or openness to communicate with the spirit world, sometimes the information pertaining to a past, current, or future experience was blatantly inaccurate. Truth that it was blatantly inaccurate. Testing spirits is a concept introduced in the Bible, and it is cited as a warning to always test a spirit and ensure they are from God, as many false prophets have gone out into the world. There's some degree of truth to this statement. Of course there is. However, I don't see it quite as clear-cut as articulated in the past. I don't perceive it so much as a need to test a spirit to see if they are connected to source energy, because I believe we all are. In contrast, I see the testing of spirit more like tuning in to the vibration to see where on the spectrum between human interpretation and ultimate source potential the information resides. Maybe I should say that again. I stuttered. I don't perceive it so much as a need to test the spirit to see if they are connected to source energy, because we all are. In contrast, I see the testing of spirit more like tuning into the vibration to see where on the spectrum between human interpretation and ultimate source potential that the information resides. And yes, there is a huge difference in energetic truths. If an intuitive were to work on a missing person's case, for example, I find many get tripped up by not tuning into the actual source. Instead, they tune into and clearly pick up information from those in the family, the community, local law enforcement, and even the missing person, whose perception of their own disappearance might be slightly skewed. Definitely, actually, especially if it was an untimed death. Within this muddle of energy, many have already formulated ideas and theories as to what unfolded. Someone might get a very clear image, for example, that the missing person was killed. The truth in this analogy would be that they clearly saw the vision. The inaccuracy would be based on where it came from. I find that once a story of a missing person's case is widespread, it becomes harder and harder to get past the debris of all the scenarios already running rampant within the collective, moving past the perceived knowing into a higher source of clarity. In my book, Evolving Your Soul Works, sitting over there, right? Or second book in this trilogy. I also discussed how our soul expands after death, even after death, reaching higher octaves of awareness as our soul grows and evolves. As we move through this enlightenment process, our connection to the ultimate truth becomes clearer. In the meantime, I find that even the guides of those who reside within the lower frequencies are not as accurate or have the ultimate authority to the truth on any given situation. Fact. Even when it is guidance coming from a loved one on the other side, I find their initial understandings are still based on their own soul perception. In other words, their truth and perspectives are still working within their own chakra octave of awareness. Not that the ultimate truth can't be accessed, but that their own viewpoint, agenda, worry, or ego can sometimes get in the way. This does not mean they are evil. Bad spirits are not from God. It simply means they have individual and collective truths still overriding the ultimate ones. Speaking of ultimate truth, I find there are many reasons why someone can't always tune into or access that higher level of awareness. Now, still using the example of a missing person's case, sometimes the spirit in question is not ready to be found. Other times it's a family member or community group who are not ready to accept or understand the truth of a loved one's fate. Sometimes there are even others manipulating the evidence and trying to hide the truth. In all scenarios, there is growth, forgiveness, and acceptance that must occur before true closure can manifest and all the facts are revealed. Beyond that, finding a missing person is often only on the life path of one specific person. Hence, many open and connected participants may be willing to jump in and help. And of course, many times, this extended offer to assist provides reassurance for the family or focus for the community. However, their individual and collective outreach does not guarantee access to accurate information. Not because they don't hold a high degree of awareness, but more so because it was not their truth to discover. Regardless of this ultimate reality, I often find ego or even compassion steps in the way and wants to be the hero. Within this mindset, many are determined to find the missing piece of evidence or be the one to close the case, even when it's not their destiny to do so. Often there's a bigger divine plan and timing and order that must first play out. The true heroes, therefore, are sometimes the ones who take the time to contemplate the ultimate truth. Is there anything I can do to help right now? And more importantly, am I meant to help out in this particular situation? Or is this the specific divine appointment of another? It's a good question. Mastering your soul works. There are many times in our collective history where the ultimate truths have not been fully exposed or spoken. Even in your own life, there's certainly times when you have had an experience that others will view quite differently. For sure. Within that experience, there will always be your personal interpretation, others' interpretations, and then the higher truth of the actual reality. These interpretations and perceived understandings can actually become so strong and subconsciously projected upon another that these false collective versions of the story have the energetic capacity to override the actual one. Regardless of this difference in perspective, I believe we're meant to have compassion for and understand all aspects of the story. We are interconnected beings, thus there will never exist only one side or interpretation of any one story. There will always be many. The only thing we can do as divine beings living in human form is to strive to achieve our highest potential. Now let's use the missing persons analogy for one more, and arguably one of the largest missing persons cases of all time, the true Jesus story. I'm not denying that this mystic walked the earth, so don't even bother throwing the book at me. In my current life path, I have had snippets of this truth impressed upon my soul, superseding many of the untruths ever written. However, I've also personally made peace with not yet consciously understanding the entirety of that authentic historical story as it was experienced. Some aspects my soul is not quite ready to find. Other aspects, communities and religious groups have yet to accept. There further exists many others in this world still trying to manipulate and hide the truth to the original story. Beyond that, there has never been an accurately written representation of that particular story. Fact. Perhaps at the time, all that was missing was the foresight of a kind, elderly gentleman confidently encouraging the original accounts to be personally documented. Instead, the story was written based on the observations and opinions of some, altered and interpreted by the influences of many, and most certainly fashioned over time into the ideals and opinions of all others. I know without a doubt that the individual and collective truths of that life experience are energetically different. I am fully aware that the ultimate truth is a part of a larger divine appointment still in progress. I know that in moments that I hear, see, and experience the ultimate truth behind that particular soul works, my auric field explodes into a million pieces and then reassembles back into a beautiful formation all over again, etched within the archives of my soul. I also know that regardless of the missing aspects of our individual and collective past, we must learn to move forward with new understandings, belief systems, and higher truths. A certainty that can't even be stopped, by the way. The truth will always rise to the surface. Suppressed knowledge is fleeting, while true wisdom is eternal. No one will ever be late for their own unique divine appointments, with the ultimate truth existing beyond the mind as a pure reflection of the soul. More importantly, higher authenticity always prevails, no matter how much time has come to pass. It is for that reason alone I write my story. Your move. Honor destiny. Understand that within every life path, there will always be destined events already charted within the blueprint of your soul. Between those destined timelines resides a whole lot of space for free will, life choices, detours, and stillness to occur. However, true destiny could never be True destiny can never be missed, rejected, or altered. If your soul is ordained to reach a specific milestone, moment in time, it will. This process of divine timing is to be honored. It is a calculated appointment with your destiny and the passage of time that can neither be missed nor denied. A sacred timeline written within the stars of your soul signature, it just is. Remember this ultimate truth. Trust in the process and vow to yourself and all others to always honor the bigger picture to all things. Next, test spirits. Always test the energy of incoming information to determine the degree of validity. Remember that it is the alignment to the highest truth we are testing, not so much a person's worthiness to be able to access that level of clarity. All spirits are worthy. All spirits are worthy of an ascension process that brings one closer to the higher vibrations of clear perception. However, we must also acknowledge and understand that not every spirit has journeyed to those heights as of yet. And that is okay. That's okay. The testing of spirits is not a judgment. It is a confirmation on vibrational understanding. It is for this very reason alone you should test the accuracy of all incoming information entering your auric field. Next, respect differing truths. Respect them. Everyone will always have their own perception of how any one event unfolded. Learn to honor this process and level of clarity. There's no use arguing with an individual's truth. Their truth is their truth, based on their chakra octave of awareness that they currently hold. Understandings, interpretations, and experiences. In fact, go one step further and honor their truth, even if it's not your own. Understand that we all have the free will to interpret and perceive any experience through the eyes of our own understanding. Regardless of what level of truth we are currently tapping into. Next, ask yourself, what is my motivation? Avoid the urge to jump in and be the hero or perceived authority in any given situation. Instead, ask yourself, is there anything I can do to help? And more importantly, am I meant to help in this situation, or is this the specific divine appointment of another? In truth, if the concept of being the hero is what propels you to get involved, you've already missed the mark. As I've said before, I've watched many try to flex their intuitive muscle or perceived authority under the guise of being seen, heard, or adamant to make their mark in the world. True heroes will get involved because they are guided to, or because they were inspired to dive in without even once thinking about the accolades that might result from their involvement. It will be an inner pull that inspires a hero beyond logic or motivation. Next, feel the authenticity. There are many conversations, interactions, and experiences we all have over the course of our life journey. I consider all interactions to be a potential sign. However, not all interactions are a true representation of your destined route. Many times I will overhear conversations that will tweak my soul energy. Right? We all have those moments. Sometimes there's an authentic message in there. Other times, it is simply a perspective of another, but that can certainly bring clarity to my own understanding. For sure. We don't have to follow all external directives we see, feel, and hear, assuming they're all signs from above. However, we do have to be mindful of the interaction and know when elements of our own truth are peeking through the veil. I consider signs for our soul like directional signage. There are many types, and all offer navigational purposes, for sure. However, just because we come across a sign depicting a point of interest, it doesn't necessarily mean we need to stop there or change our own destination. Listen to the authenticity within your soul to know and perceive if this destination is for you. And lastly, dare to see. There are many situations, events, and globally accepted truths that are based on individual and collective understandings. Dare to see the bigger picture. Feel out the alignment of energies and let the truth come to the surface. Our soul knows the highest truth. Sometimes we are just not brave enough, aware enough, humble enough, ready enough, or open enough to see it yet. In your mind, remove your own individual perceptions, the collective awareness, and all ghost-written stories or interpretations depicted by others. In that moment of divine grace, you most certainly have access to see and retrieve the highest of truths. Always. I'll see you there.